Hey guys, per usual, living on this channel is for educational purposes only and is not intended as financial advice. So this is a heat map of the market crypto-wide, pretty cool to look at. Can't really trade off of it, but it helps you see like what's hot, what's not. This is coin360.com. They're not paying me for this, but they should be. Just interesting to look at, what's up bigger than everything else. I really caution people. There's a lot of alts moving before Bitcoin did here. And if you're trying to chase stuff, instead of just sticking to your guns and holding on to something that you think is a winning trade eventually, I think you'll do better off. You can certainly rotate successfully. I mean, there are plenty of people who do. I talked about that in the last couple of videos, rotating out of stuff that is kind of overperformed and rotating into stuff that looks like it's ready to move, whatever. But just interesting to look at the heat map when everything does well. So let's talk about some boring stuff first, then I'll talk about TA specifics. But overall, everything like the heat map shows did really well yesterday, unsurprisingly. When Bitcoin moves up, pretty much every USD pair gets pulled up with it, just by matter of being on an exchange. These things are all sort of correlated. BTC pairs are another story completely. Certainly things will outperform other things, as we've seen with BNB and Tron. So that's a much more nuanced discussion than just seeing, Bitcoin move $1,000 basically in like 4 hours. That's going to move everything with it. So no surprise there, which is another reason why, I might hate Ripple, I might hate Bitcoin Cash, but you just can't short it knowing that Bitcoin has a potential breakout because they're so correlated. As much as I want most of this stuff to go to zero, it likely never will because they're so correlated on these exchanges now. It's so ossified, these correlations. It's just tough to go away. We saw Tether hit $1.02, which is interesting considering it hit sub 88 cents a couple months ago. So when Tether goes up above its dollar peg, which isn't actually the peg in this case, this is the market rate. Peg is $1, it's always $1. Market rate will fluctuate. So if demand for Tether goes up, price goes up. That's why it's $1.02. If you're selling Tether, that's a good place to sell Tether. You can get into it at $1, sell it at $1.02. You could have gotten into it at 99 cents, sell it at $1.02. This isn't saying that Tether's going to be Tether forever, but it's definitely one of the plays that you can make. This here is Bitfinex versus Coinbase Premium. You can see ever since they added like a 3% withdrawal fee, that it's basically held that level. When volatility hits, anything's fair game, and that premium will reset completely most of the time. It'll go negative huge, it'll go positive huge, just depends. But in general, volatility will reset those premiums between algo arbing and people buying on one exchange versus not buying on one exchange. Those things like that will really throw that off, as will this Tether market rate. So this is Bitcoin versus gold and an emerging market index, MSCI. So gold is the yellow line, MSCI is the green line. So the emerging market correlation between Bitcoin and EM, I stole from Fundstrat. One of the key things that they talk about that seems to be valuable. The argument being that EM and BTC is pretty correlative as far as their movements. I don't know what the values are right now, I don't really care, but watching EM go up and gold go down was another tip-off among many others to me that this move was going to happen. When gold goes up, just like my noob macro viewpoint, when gold goes up, that means it's a risk-off environment, and crypto tends to benefit from a risk-on environment. So seeing gold drop and EM rise while Bitcoin was flat, again, told me that there's a pretty good chance we're going to get a move here just based on that, among other things. It's no surprise we hit the point we did. Again, we have, I'll show this in a few seconds, but weekly levels, daily levels, painted for weeks at this point, over a month. As early as February, mid-February, these levels were painted. No surprise we stopped at the previous all-time high, the 200 daily EMA. all this stuff. No shocker, we're chilling here for a minute. The CME stuff, we didn't get a dump like we have every single time. Now, there's still plenty of time for that, but I'd expect that dump to happen sooner rather than later if it's going to happen. I expected it to happen during the rollover weekend. This past weekend, it didn't happen, so that was good. I was definitely concerned a couple days before the weekend when we started dipping. That could have been it. That could have been the CME rollover crazy $500 down candle, but we just slowly kept sliding up. I mean, there's nothing more bearish than slowly grinding down, and there's nothing more bullish than slowly grinding up. And as lots of people have pointed out, this was also, among many other things, an ascending triangle. You got your Adam even here, you got your potential cup and handle in here, you got your potential messy inverted head and shoulders in here. There's all this stuff. That's why I like looking at it online sometimes, just to get rid of most of the noise, most of the wicks and whatever. And you could see pretty clearly as soon as it broke the horizontal, it was good to go, much higher. So here's a weekly cloud and B-bands and RSI. And I think 2 videos ago or whatever, I was talking about the weekly 50 on RSI as being like the level to watch on the up move, as well as the Tenkin. So you can see we're kind of above all that right now. Daily RSI's hit something absurd like 93. Another reason I think this is going to cool off a little bit and chill. This is a long-term level. This isn't something I expect to hit anytime soon, same with 10K. These levels are 6 to 12 months away, at least. I'll talk about that in the next chart, but nothing to like go along and hope we're going to hit it now. I mean, if we do, great. I hope I'm wrong, but I just, the 6,200 zone, it took us X amount of months to break down. It's going to take us likely that same amount of time to break up. But certainly I'm more bullish than bearish, but again, this move isn't like anything new as far as expectations are concerned. It wasn't a surprise. Another thing here, the macro Adam Eve is more difficult to see on this because the BLX closes at a different time than everything else. But it's pretty clear that we hit our V, we hit our U, it hit the horizontal and took off. So this is a weekly kind of macro. If I'm trying to prognosticate, like most of these people are, uselessly, this is the narrative that I would use. So you can see we had our textbook Wyckoff accumulation. Didn't know that then, know that now. In 2015 through 2016, basically just a ranging zone, and that bounces a couple times and then makes a decision higher. In between all of that, we've had the BTC having, at that time, we had Bitfinex hack. This line is the 200 daily moving average, loosely the 29 on the weekly. So there's all that, in the back of my head. Past results don't predict the future, blah, blah, blah. But if we're comparing things, this took roughly 300 days to make a decision. 300 days from, this outlook would be sometime around September. I know it's hard to read these dates, but September 2nd. Okay, so between September and October, we might see something. What else is in October? Well, there's Mt. Gox creditor meeting. There's the final deadline for the Bitcoin ETFs, which I just don't think are going to get passed this year or the next year. And there's an ETH hard fork. There's also LTC having, all this stuff doesn't happen in a vacuum. Crypto is, like I said, with the USD pairs correlating with BTC moves, all this stuff talks to each other. All this stuff can certainly outperform one another, but if LTC is mooning, I don't expect everything else to just chill. If ETH is mooning, going to its hard fork, like it did on the last hard fork in October that ended up being in February, I don't expect everything else to just chill. This is going to sort of pull everything up, I think. We'll see. One thing that would be bearish, obviously, is that if the Bitcoin from Mt. Gox gets released, it's definitely in the back of most people's mind. It's like 160,000 or something. BTC plus cash. I mean, it's a lot to just hit the market at once. And I expect most people to just sell. I don't expect most people to hold, but maybe I'm just too pessimistic about that. So that's kind of all in the back of my head, along with Bitcoin halving obviously coming up in May 2020. So if we get our Wyckoff accumulation zone between now and October, we could have a chance to break above the accumulation zone in October and then sort of make this ascending triangle, this tight thing. I just don't see us breaking 6,200 this year. I hope I'm wrong. I just don't see it. What I'm pointing out with the RSIs, previously we broke the 200, we broke the 50 RSI, and then we actually retested the yearly lows at the time. So that's definitely not out of the cards here. I will be buying 3,400 like nobody's business, ready for it pre-October or thereabouts. Maybe we get this Mt. Gox decision and there's all this money being released on exchanges. We get this down wick and that's it. That ideally, if the narrative happens like that, I'd be the most happy. Just happens all at once, just like the Bitfinex hack. Things just happen and boom, that's the event. It's over, and we can move on from there. We'll see what happens. Another option, of course, is the Mt. Gox trustee can just sell everything at any time, which is the most scary thing. It's certainly possible. So overall, if I'm prognosticating, October will be 300 days from the down move, and then probably a tight pattern for a few months leading into BTC halving. I can see we basically consolidated pre-halving, so expecting that again isn't like out of the ordinary. Certainly possible. And it was definitely something we were talking about when we were trading this pattern at the time. How is the halving going to affect things? It should be bullish. We had just touched like $200 a few months ago. Things overall were definitely still on the fence as far as possibilities, but everyone was leaning bullish. Another thing to watch for at the time, there was a massive short squeeze here on Bitfinex. Something else to watch for if we're building short interest going into this 6,200 zone. Definitely fuel for the rocket upwards. So speaking of open interest, overall, there was nothing crazy compared to the other pairs for Bitcoin, at least on Bitfinex. It was close to parity and kind of really didn't move much overall. That wasn't the case on Deribit. It wasn't the case on BitMEX. Open interest was just mooning pre-move. You can see daily volume finally picked up, highest daily volume all year. Again, our daily RSI hit somewhere around 90 on that move. Another reason just to say, okay, that's enough for me. I'm happy with that move overall. Again, I pointed out this 5K zone, 200 level. I don't expect it to just keep going. If it does, great. I hope I'm wrong, but probably going to consolidate a little bit. I don't expect another $1,000 candle. You can see we busted through this volume congestion, the next volume congestion, somewhere around 55 to 58. Previous WikiWik stuff. Yeah, it's just pretty clean. It's funny, all these articles like, what was the news? Was it April Fool's? Was it, XYZ reason? It's like, to anybody looking at a chart, it was pretty technical, I think, anyway. Here's the edge to edge. We were talking about this since February. I had a chart February 14th talking about the possibility. Yeah, there's really not much else to say. Going forward, I'd expect this to just consolidate, potentially retrace to the Kijun when it reaches the bullish Kumo breakout, which is likely to happen. If it stays above 34 until May, it's going to be a bullish Kumo breakout. The first time it'll be above the cloud since 2018. It'll be the first bullish Kumo breakout since like 2016. So this is a pretty big trend-setting move overall for the future, not necessarily in the near term, but long term. I think this will be okay, and that matches the accumulation theory. It matches the ascending triangle. Blah blah blah. I was talking about on the weekly, so we can chill sideways in a bullish manner, just as it did in 2015, 2016. So let's talk about some other stuff. Talk about USD pairs for ETH and EOS and LTC and whatever. So ETH, like I said, it moved in October pre-fork, and then moved in February pre-fork, and it had the cleanest Adam Eve overall on the macro level. That still hasn't broke up. This is basically pre-Bitcoin breakup. As far as a structural perspective, it has its Adam Eve, it has its ascending triangle. It's even got a bullish Kumo breakout for the first time since I don't even know when, pre-2018 certainly. I wouldn't expect this to turn down here. I'd expect people rotating into ETH. There's a little bit of a bear div building, but it's minor. I still expect this 250 target to be a possibility, certainly. 208 is essentially Bitcoin 6200, which is kind of scary, but you can see it's at the bottom of the previous consolidation zone. So I don't know, ETH looks good to me. I'd expect people to rotate into it. I'd expect the ETH BTC pair to turn up after this, because I expect Bitcoin to sort of chill. It looks good. You know, if it breaks 160, that's another entry for a pattern, horizontal. Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say. ETH has kind of just been doing its thing. Obviously, the ETH BTC pair got slaughtered yesterday because ETH didn't really move, but that's not saying it won't move now. So again, I expect people to rotate into that. LTC is just kind of on a mind of its own. Again, it's having, it's in August this year, 125 days. It's got a bullish 5200 cross. It is very likely to hit 100. You know, it's out of this volume congestion zone. 100 is going to be the psychological level. If spec takes over pre-halving, it's going to get nuts, and who knows? But it had its Adam Eve. You know, I'm talking about the same thing over and over again because all these charts are basically the same. But it's well past its 6200 level, this previous consolidation. So it's ready to just go. You know, there was a massive rising wedge here with the bear div. Doesn't matter. You know, that's when spec takes over. And there's a little bit of a falling or a fundamental narrative going on here, I think. Will LTC outperform BTC long term? I don't really know. I haven't looked at the LTC BTC ratio, but I know it turned down certainly yesterday and was looking weaker like last Sunday. So I still think it's a decent play on the USD pair, but on the BTC pair, it's a little murkier. You know, why play the BTC pair if you don't have to? If you're certain it's going to an X level, you know, why bother play that game? Like I was saying, all these USD pairs are going to be correlated. Whether or not they outperform one another is another story. EOS, similar to LTC, been bullish on the cloud for quite a few days now. It's going to get its 5200 cross. 555 would kind of be its 6200 level. It's got lots of consolidation zones, so it's got a few more zones of volume congestion. So I don't expect it to just shoot past this level, but it can certainly consolidate within that zone. Yeah, I mean, not much to say. It looks good. Looks good on trend. First time with strong on volume Kumo breakout. It's got, definitely has a bear div going on, but overall looks good trend wise going forward. XRP, a lot of lines here, busy chart, I know, but nothing on this chart tells me it's going to go to $3 anytime soon. If you look at OI right now, open interest on Bitfinex, it's like 93% long. Yeah, that's only like $6 million or whatever, but it's just, I would not want to sit in this versus sitting in LTC, for instance. It's you know, it's got reasons to go up, but it's still overall in a bear trend. 45 cents, 50 cents probably stops there. I don't expect it to keep going, but it's a wild card. I certainly wouldn't want to short it. I wouldn't want to play around with even XRP BTC. I just think it's too much of a question mark overall to really know what the hell's going on there. Monero, another busy one. I was actually also in Monero I don't know, for last week, whatever it was, just because it looked just like Bitcoin. You know, it's past this volume congestion. It's in this huge gap, and 84.85 basically be its like 6,200 equivalent-ish. You know, the chart looks a lot different than Bitcoin does, but it has some heavy volume congestion pre-100 level, so don't expect it to just do its thing. Two more charts. So Dash had this Eiffel Tower Adam Eve, edge to edge at the mean. Again, I don't expect this to just keep going. It's going to do its thing. Volume congestion between 150 and 200. I don't think it's going to shoot past. It's probably going to consolidate. You can see it hits levels pretty cleanly. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about Zeke BTC because I get so much hate when I crap on Zeke. But sorry, guys. I just don't see this outperforming Bitcoin anytime in the near future. That's all I have for this one. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe. Hit me up on Twitter, and happy trading.